Good evening, Crime Talk aficionados. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. It is Tuesday, August 9th of 2022. Let's open the docket, and then we will do our live show. So last week, for those of you who are regulars, we didn't do our Tuesday night live show, affectionately referred to as After Dark with Scott Reich. So since we missed a show, we'll go a little longer tonight, and then we'll roll into our Patreon show. So if you haven't become a Patreon member, now would be a good time to do so. Tonight on the Patreon show, we will discuss the recent filings by Mr. John Pryor in the Lori Vallow Chad Daybell matter, as well as a little bit of a conversation that I had, talking about a little bit of conversation that I had with Lori Hellis that wasn't on the video. Once we stopped the video, we chatted and we got some really good stuff, and I wish he should have recorded that, but I didn't, but that's all right. We'll talk about it. So remember, when you become a Patreon member, we'll take your calls, answer all of your questions about really anything you want to talk about. And then we leave it to the Magic 8 Ball to answer all of the great questions of the day. And I think the Magic 8 Ball is probably about 90 to 95% accurate, I think, when it comes to answering those questions. Now, first, I want to welcome everyone from YouTube and Facebook. And can you believe that since we started this little channel, we have nearly 214,000 subscribers on YouTube, and Facebook, when I checked earlier today, we have 477,000 followers. Can you believe that? That's crazy. And then also I follow this little tracking thing, but our podcast, which is the audio from what we do on YouTube, and the Facebook is a little bit different editing as well, but we have 969,845 downloads. So I only need 30,000 more downloads to get to 1 million. So remember, you can listen to us on your favorite podcasting apps. Go ahead and download it anyway, and it'll make me feel better about me if you do that, okay? Because I'm sure everybody knows somebody that has a podcast. I do, me. But, when you look at the numbers from most of them, usually they get about 7 downloads per episode because it's them, their wife, their kids, and maybe a couple of close friends. So we appreciate all of you. So remember, subscribe if you have not, like the video if you do, and hit that bell so that you receive notifications when we go live or put up new content. Now, today on the docket, we try not to get too political here, all right? But the execution of the search warrant on former President Trump's residence, well, it's a good teachable moment on warrants. Then we got a story about a doctor trying to kill her doctor husband with Drano. Little update on that nurse who killed 6 people. She's going to continue to remain in jail. And for the regulars, you know my saying, it's always about the money. And when they say it's not, well, then you know it really is. Got a story for you about that. And a story of a woman not guilty of killing her husband, but guilty of cleaning up the crime scene. Figure that one out. And then our dumb criminal of the day. Let's talk about it. All right, good evening. Let's go ahead and open the docket for August 9th, 2022. Well, the FBI's unprecedented search of former President Donald Trump's Florida residence, well, a little bit of ricochet around government politics and the country, along with questions as to why the Justice Department, notably cautious under Attorney General Merrick Garland, decided to take a pretty drastic steps. Well, answers were not exactly quickly forthcoming, and agents Monday searched the Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate, which is also a private club, as part of a federal investigation into whether the president took classified records from the White House to his Florida residence. Now, people familiar with the matter said it marked a dramatic escalation of law enforcement scrutiny of Mr. Trump, who faces an array of inquiries tied to his conduct in the waning days of his administration. Now, Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, Only thing he said publicly is that no one is above the law. Now, remember, when somebody gets a warrant, okay, this is the law. A federal judge has to sign off on the warrant after establishing that FBI has shown that there's probable cause before they could go in and execute the search warrant. Now, some people argue the Department of Justice is a political tool for those who are in power. Others argue that we become a third world banana republic going after political opponents. And others argue that, well, no one's above the law and therefore there must have been probable cause, so it must be all legal. Well, here at Crime Talk, we like to enlighten you, not just to the stories, but to the law behind it. So let's take a moment, because this is a good teachable moment, to briefly discuss warrants. All right. Now, remember, we are all protected under that pesky little thing called the Constitution, specifically the Bill of Rights, and the Fourth Amendment, which specifically says, well, the government can't search, seize, take anything from you unless they have a warrant, right? The Fourth Amendment to the Constitution, that we are free from unreasonable searches and seizures. Now, once the Fourth Amendment applies to a particular search and seizure, the next question is under what circumstances a warrant is required to be issued. Well, the United States Supreme Court has ruled that the U.S. Constitution prefers searches, seizures, and arrests conducted pursuant to a lawfully executed warrant. Now, a warrant is a written order signed by a court authorizing law enforcement to conduct a search, seizure, or arrest. And searches, seizures, and arrests performed without a valid warrant are presumed to be invalid. And any evidence seized without a warrant will be suppressed unless the court finds the search was reasonable under the circumstances. The key word being reasonable. All right. So the requirements for a valid search warrant is obviously need an application for a warrant that must be supported by a sworn detailed statement made by law enforcement officers appearing before this neutral magistrate. And the United States Supreme Court has also said that probable cause exists when the facts and circumstances within the police officer's knowledge provides a reasonable, trustworthy basis for a person of reasonable caution to believe that a criminal offense has been committed or is about to take place. So, probable cause can be established by an out-of-court statement made by a reliable police informant, even though the magistrate cannot test those statements. However, probable cause will not lie where the only evidence of criminal activity is an officer's affirmation of suspicion or belief. Now, on the other hand, an officer's subjective reason for making an arrest does not need to be the same criminal offense for which the facts indicate. Now, probable cause will not lie unless the officer swears the facts supporting the warrant as true to the best of their knowledge. The officer's oath can be written or oral, but the officer must typically swear that no knowing or intentionally false statements have been supported or submitted in support of the warrant, and that no statement has been made in a reckless disregard of the truth. It's important to note that inaccuracies due to an officer's negligence or innocent omission won't typically jeopardize a warrant's validity. They'll simply say, oh, it was good faith. So there's got to be details in a warrant application. So in addition to probable cause, the Fourth Amendment warrant requirement also necessitates that a warrant particularly describe the person or place to be searched or seized. In other words, a warrant must provide enough detail so that an officer can ascertain with reasonable effort the persons or places identified in the warrant. Now, for most residents, a street address usually satisfies the particularity requirement unless the warrant designates an apartment complex, hotel, or other multi-unit building. You have to get a little more descriptive. The warrant must describe the specific subunit to be searched, and warrants must describe individuals with sufficient particularity so that a person of average intelligence can distinguish them from others in the general population. And the neutral and detached magistrate requirement. Before an officer applies for a warrant, the magistrate must be neutral and detached. This qualification means that the magistrate must be impartial and not a member of law enforcement's competitive enterprise. Thus, police officers, prosecutors, and attorney generals are disqualified from becoming a magistrate. Now, states vary on the requirements from magistrates. Some want them to be lawyers. Others simply require them to be somebody that is literate. And I'm not joking here either. Let's talk staleness. The information that goes into the warrant, it can't be stale. Okay, think about it as this. If somebody goes to a magistrate and says, hey, we want to search a particular location, we believe there's illegal drug activity going on in there. And the officer says, I didn't see it myself, but I sent a confidential informant in. The confidential informant met with somebody and they came out with drugs and we had searched them beforehand. So we believe that there are drugs in there. They have to go apply for that warrant to go in and search for the items that they're looking for, drugs. And they have to do that within a reasonable amount of time. If they do it within a couple of days, you're probably good. If they wait 6 months, that information is stale because something like that can move and disappear. So, and it also means that a warrant has to be executed within 14 days, no greater than 14 days from the date that it's issued from a judge. Now, do judges always get it right? Well, I can tell you, I have a case where the DA wants to search a bunch of phones and the judge keeps denying their request, saying it's a general warrant. There's not enough particularity as to what you want to search. In today's world on cell phones, everyone thinks, oh, they're going to go get the cell phone. No, it's like a subpoena. You can't just go on a fishing expedition, right? That's what the Fourth Amendment prohibits. You have to say, I want to look at this particular item and I have a reasonable belief that it's there because phones carry all this information. We believe that there was text messages going on. You have to be very specific. You don't get them all unless the defendant consents to them. Otherwise, it's a general warrant. General warrants are illegal under the law. So judges can say, no, you can't do it. You can't go just rummaging around. Now, if there's a challenge to a warrant, remember what I mentioned about the whole information regarding police officers swearing under no oath that everything is true, accurate, and correct? Well, if you can show at a hearing called a Franks hearing based upon USB Franks that the officer lied, left out material information, you can show that there wouldn't be probable cause if you took out the falsehood or you plugged in the information that the officer failed to put in the affidavit. And that can actually get the police officer in big trouble. It's called a Franks hearing, and it is something that there's challenges to them routinely because police officers do not get it right all the time. Neither do judges. Remember the case just recently in Louisville, Kentucky, where they went in and they lied about the location. It was just the whole thing was botched from the beginning. And the judge didn't really question anything because, well, they're cops, they're good guys. So what's the problem? Okay. So we're going to have to see how things play out here as it relates to former President Trump's Mar-a-Lago search. They said the boxes were taken out and they didn't basically identify anything. So it really makes you wonder if somebody on the inside, so to speak, was saying, hey, these documents are in this specific location. But officers have to be worried when you just start picking up boxes and you don't inventory them at that particular time. Guess what? That could be deemed a general search. Yeah. So we'll see how it plays out. No word yet. And of course, they're not going to release the information, but they had to go in front of a judge and convince somebody. And I bet that judge may have had a little bit of a sleepless night. And I guarantee you this went all the way to the top. Okay. You can't get a plea bargain done in a U.S. attorney's office without it going through about 3 layers of approval back at Main Justice back in D.C. So I can only imagine this went all the way to the top. We'll continue to follow it. It's definitely a search under the Fourth Amendment, which implicates criminal issues. So we'll follow it and we'll keep it non-political. All right, next on the docket, a California dermatologist, a doctor, who was arrested on suspicious of poisoning her husband, was allegedly caught in the act after her partner set up a nanny cam in the couple's kitchen in their little house, their little $3 million home. Now, the footage allegedly shows Dr. Emily Emily Yu, I guess, Emily Yu, putting Drano, which is obviously a drain cleaner, into her husband's hot lemonade on multiple occasions. Now, Dr. Chen, a radiologist, told police he had become sick and suffered serious injuries before handing them the video evidence to prove his claim. Now, Chen, who is now seeking a divorce after 10 years of marriage, claimed that Yu abused him and their 2 children for years, with the dermatologist once shouting at the youngsters to go die. Now, when Emily gets frustrated and yells at the children, she'll commonly use Chinese phrases that translate to go die. Chen wrote in a court statement as he sought a restraining order against his wife. She also says to the children, "Your head has a problem. Your head is sick. Go F yourself, F an idiot, stupid a-hole, and get the F out of my way," Mr. Chen wrote. Now, Yu was arrested last Thursday outside of her dermatology office in Mission Viejo, and the group has also taken her name off of their website. So it doesn't look good for Miss Yu. The police said that Mr. Chen called the police earlier today on Thursday and shared with them what he believes is showing evidence that his wife is poisoning him in the video. Officers reviewed the video. Yu was arrested on this suspicion of poisoning her husband and then released on bond. We'll see how that one goes. I mean, how many movies are there out there where people are poisoning their children and things of that nature? So Yu has not been charged yet, but Chen has been granted the temporary protection order. And Drano, did you put a little Drano in my coffee this morning? I mean, I take the lovely Miss Kristen her coffee every morning. I think she would notice if it didn't taste right. Like, oh, it tastes a little bit like Drano. Why did it take so many times for the good doctor to figure out the other doctor was poisoning her? All right. Well, the traveling ICU nurse who killed 6 people in the horrific crash in Los Angeles on Thursday, after plowing through an intersection at roughly 90 miles an hour of a busy intersection, man, has a history of some mental illness and apparently has been involved in 13 prior crashes, but was still somehow subcontracted to work in a hospital and allowed to drive. Now, the nurse, we'll give her the presumption of innocence, Nicole Lorraine Linton, is in custody on 6 murder charges as a result of Thursday's crash. Among those killed was a pregnant woman, Asheria Ryan, who was on her 1-year-old son. Her 1-year-old son, Alonzo, and Reynold Lester, the father of Asheria's unborn baby, who also died. Now, on Tuesday, another victim was named. 2 other female victims remain unidentified. Now, Linton is originally from Houston, Texas, and was in Los Angeles working as a contractor at the Kaiser Permanente West Los Angeles Hospital. She was working for the nursing contractor group AMN Healthcare, which she joined back in 2020. She apparently did not have drugs or alcohol in her system, and her motive for running the red light and plowing through the intersection remains unclear. Prosecutors revealed that Linton was involved in 13 prior accidents, one in 2020, where the 2 vehicles were totaled. Linton was traveling at a speed, like I said, of 90 miles per hour when she ran the red light and hit crossing vehicles at the busy intersection. And like I said, the 8-month pregnant Asheria Ryan was pronounced deceased at the scene alongside with her 1-year-old child. They were actually going to a baby checkup, unborn baby checkup. Crazy. And when you look at that video, she didn't even stop. Can we play that again real quick, Frank? Of course. I mean, look at this. She didn't even stop. Traffic, everything's looking good. Everything's looking good. Everybody's checking left, checking right. Look good to go. And then all of a sudden, here comes Miss Linton. It literally busted the cars in half. And how do you prepare? Look at that. Boom. Well, she remains in custody on a $9 million bond. $9 million, Miss Linton. Seems fair for the death of 6 people. Yeah, and you can see there was a fiery crash, probably hence the reason why they haven't identified 2 of the people. Well, a man who was wrongfully arrested for standing outside of a Bronx courthouse handing out flyers about jury nullification. Well, and for those of you who don't know, that's where juries render not guilty verdicts despite overwhelming evidence of guilt. And a federal court confirmed that Michael Picard, a civil libertarian activist, was taken into custody back in 2017 after police took issue with him passing out papers telling recipients, Google jury nullification. Law enforcement alleged that he violated a New York law barring people from standing within 200 feet of a courthouse, calling for or demanding any specified action or determination by such court or jury in connection with an ongoing case. While Mr. Picard was not referencing a specific trial when he was arrested, he referenced a general tactic he sees as bulwark against the government, overreaching. There are unjust laws, he said. This is a tool that juries or jurors can use to express their disagreements with the law. Now, the court also found that Mr. Picard was not trying to sway a jury panel to vote one way or the other in finding a particular defendant guilty of murder, which most people would see is not an unjust law and should be adjudicated based upon the facts at hand. He was simply exercising his right to tell the public about a tactic that can be vital to preserving liberty and pushing back against prosecutorial zealotry. So in arresting him and booking him in and promoting the general concept of jury nullification, the state violated his First Amendment rights, according to the United States Court of Appeals in the Second Circuit. He wasn't lying. He wasn't making stuff up. He was simply saying, hey, this is what I think. Take a look at it. That's protected. Government can't do that, ladies and gentlemen. It's a violation of his First Amendment. Get the checkbook out. All right. For those of you who've been watching for a while, you know one of the 12 undeniable truths from a criminal defense attorney is that it's always about the money. And when they say it's not about the money, then you know it's always about the money. Well, cue in the Gabby Petito family. Okay, now we're not trying to pick on the Gabby Petito's family. They have lost their daughter. I get that. But they issued a legal notice to Utah police regarding their intention to sue them for $50 million for Petito's 2021 wrongful death at the hands of her boyfriend, Brian Laundrie. So according to the report, Petito's family claimed that the Moab police had the opportunity to save Petito's life when they responded to a domestic violence call on August 12th, weeks before Laundrie allegedly strangled her at the Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming. The family cites an independent report completed by Captain Brandon Radcliffe, which found that responding officers overlooked claims by the original 911 caller, who indicated they witnessed Laundrie slap Petito at a nearby co-op. Radcliffe stated in a report that the responding cops also ignored scratches on Petito's cheek, and they did not document her injuries. The officers allegedly also failed to contact the original 911 caller. Despite this, the 99-page report concluded that it was impossible to know whether Petito would be alive today had the police handled the August 2021 call differently. The Salt Lake papers reported that Petito's family wants any judgment to go to an anti-domestic violence initiative. I get it. We called the cops out, probably screwed it up. If it was you or me, probably got arrested. She didn't want him arrested at the time, which obviously takes place in a lot of domestic violence cases. Normally, someone goes to jail. But if you may recall, guess what? It was originally called in that she was the aggressor and that maybe she should have been arrested and taken to jail. So that's what the police perceived. Nobody wanted anybody to go to jail. That's typical in DV cases. But to say that but for the police officers not doing that, that she would still be alive today, he could have gone to court. They could have dropped the case. There's so many variables. So in a civil case, you have to show that but for that actions, the result would not have happened. I think that's going to be a little tough to do. I get the Petito family is distraught by the death of their daughter. I would want to do the same thing. They're angry, they're upset, but I'm not sure trying to get $50 million from the police is going to make anybody feel any better. Additionally, most states have caps on wrongful death suits, claims. It's not going to be worth $50 million. And oh, guess what? They're qualified immunity by the police officers. So I'm just not sure it's a good use of time or resources. But hey, if somebody wants to take that on a contingency basis, good for them, I guess. Next, we have a Florida woman who was found not guilty in the July killing of her husband, but she was convicted of cleaning up the crime scene after his death. Danielle Redlick, who was accused of killing her husband, Michael Redlick, was found guilty of evidence tampering back in June, but found not guilty of her husband's death. The jury deliberated for about 4 hours before returning the not guilty verdict for murder as well as manslaughter. Well, Redlick was sentenced to a year of probation for the evidence tampering charge after she took measures to clean up the crime scene. Evidence was presented at trial that showed that while her husband was dead, she messaged from her home, browsed a dating app, and tried to bleach the scene before calling for help. Police found Michael, an executive at the University of Central Florida, deceased and bloodied near the entrance of their upscale Winter Park home back in January of 2019. Now, Redlick eventually called 911 and claimed Michael had a heart attack after stabbing himself, which might have triggered the heart attack. Well, she's accused of waiting 11 hours before calling 911 before he stabbed himself. Well, Redlick then told the dispatcher that she fell asleep next to her husband's body after performing CPR, because that can be exhausting. And then when somebody passes away, when they stab themselves, by God, wait 11 hours. You never know what a jury's going to do, ladies and gentlemen. The responding officers did note that Michael was surrounded by a pool of blood and bloody towels. Police wrote that the trail of blood leading to the master bedroom had circular stains, suggesting that someone tried to clean it up before their arrival. And then finally, our dumb criminal of the day. Please meet Enzo Zabala Cardoza. He apparently advised, let the Florida police know, as they were catching him with a glass pipe at his lips, attempting to light up early the other day, that guess what? As he's walking away, he's declaring meth is legal now. He didn't offer any further details to when lawmakers legalize the highly addictive stimulant. And as it turns out, to his surprise, meth possession is still a crime in the state of Florida, as in just about every state that I can think of. Well, in fact, all of them, I think. So Mr. Zavala Cardoza was busted on felony drug possession and charged with misdemeanor count of resisting police. He's on a $2,150 bond. And what can you do? He's also on bond on a previous case where he had possession of meth, probably where he thought it was legal at the time. Mr. Zavala Cordova, meth kills. Meth is illegal. Just say no. All those campaigns that don't do meth, don't do it. All right. So that's our daily doc that we did today. Hopefully I didn't mess it up too bad without the powers of Frank to edit and make me sound wonderful. So let's talk about some other things, and then we'll start getting to some of the questions. Hope you all enjoyed the show that we put up today. I thought I was going to be in a deposition all day, and it got continued. So we had our interview that we did with Lori Hellis. She was the attorney who is a she's a former attorney. She's retired, according to her own words, and she's now a writer, but she is the one that filed the motions to intervene in the Lori Vallow Chad Daybell matter, saying, hey, Judge Boyce, you got it wrong. You need to unseal all these sealed transcripts. We need to see what's going on in this particular case. And that's a good thing. I will say it again, Lori Hellis, hero. Check out her video that we did, it went up today. And also she has a newsletter, and she'd probably appreciate it if you subscribed to that as well. And she's also on Hidden True Crime. I think every Friday night they go on and do a little podcast, but she's great. We met her out at CrimeCon out in Las Vegas as well. And she's very close with the Woodcocks, obviously the grandparents for JJ Ryan. So hope you enjoyed that conversation. And like I said, also, please join us this evening for our Patreon show. We'll talk more about the motions filed in the Lori Vallow case as well. The one thing that we didn't get to today, I guess already, is the our quote of the day. We've been doing those lately. And I this is one of my favorite quotes, okay? I think it's the best of all time because it really kind of sums up, seems like, the world that we live in today. So here we go. And this is from, and I don't see it, and I swear to gosh, I don't know what happened to it, but my copy of Atlas Shrugged is missing. Call the police. We have been robbed. Okay. Crime has been committed. My highlighted version of Atlas Shrugged is gone. Anyway, there's a quote in there by one of the characters in the book. It's a novel, but you should read it. Totally changed your life. Francisco D. Antonio. And this is a paragraph of a much longer speech that is done in there, but it's talking about money. Basically, if the quote goes, be wary of any man who says the money is the root of all evil. It's the leper's bell of a looter approaching. Anyway, this quote I think is great. It says, money is the barometer of a society's virtue. When you see that trading is done not by consent, but by compulsion, when you see that in order to produce, you need to obtain permission from men who produce nothing, when you see that money is flowing to those who deal not in goods, but in favors, when you see that men get rich by graft and by pull than by work, and your laws don't protect you against them, but protect them against you, when you see corruption being rewarded and honesty becoming a self-sacrifice, you may know that your society is doomed. Think about that for a while. That's interesting. Think about it, ladies and gentlemen. Interesting. All right, let's go because it's wow, look, I want to thank everybody for joining us. First of all, here, boy, we have a lot of things. Let's take a look, start answering some questions here. Here in the chat, people obviously love Miss Hellas, which is great. She's great. And as soon as I saw a picture, I'm like, oh, I know you. We've met. And it was great. So yeah, let's see here. Your can of Cafe Bustelo in the back of your shelf. Cafe Bustelo.
No, I think it's the police line to take.
Oh. Oh, okay. That's my police line. Let's see here. Back away from the FBI. They will only botch the investigation up. I like cops. Don't get me wrong. I have friends that are police officers, acquaintances that are police officers, people that I know professionally that are police officers. I have a lot of respect for them. And there's very, very good ones out there, like in any profession. But there are some that are not that good. And, if the former president has committed a crime, although documents, I mean, let's face it, I don't think the president packed up his own documents on his way out of the White House to Mar-a-Lago. So I'm not exactly sure how they know that documents exist there or that he would know that they are there. And the fact that the National Archives is like, we want those documents. Like, they couldn't pick up the phone and say, hey, former Mr. President, can we come look through your stuff, see if there's anything else there, whether it's classified or not? I mean, it's not like, he had a bunch of emails on his, server that was in like a bathroom closet, conducting international business for the United States. I mean, it's not like it was anything serious like that. I mean, it's not like he left his laptop at a computer repair store, which documents his sexual exploits with every prostitute on the East Coast, while one's doing drugs. I mean, we're talking about some documents that are probably pretty safe. I don't think the Secret Service lets people into Mar-a-Lago to just rummage around to do that. So that's going to be an interesting one. It's going to be an interesting one for sure, to see how that one plays out. Candy Marie, Vala Woodcock, hello, wishing you and your family all the best in the world. I hope whatever outcome will be, the heart heals happens from you. Love, Candy Marie. That's very nice. That's very nice. Let's see. People love Lori Hellis. Geez, we should just bring her on the show and we'll call it the Lori Hellis show. And Scott will be the sidekick. How's that? Oh, she's great. She's great. That's absolutely great. All right. The quote is real. Bowling with cotton balls. This quote is real. Yes. It's from the Greater speech from Atlas Shrugged, Antonio D. and Francisco D. Antonio speech. The Root of All Money speech. It's great. Lee here read Atlas Shrugged 40 years ago, but apparently I got the wrong meaning as seen by the right, but I like my understanding of it being everyone has value. Well, yes, because under a libertarian mindset, the individual is the greatest minority of all, individual rights. And basically that no man should have to work for another, just like I should ask no man to work for me. You should be able to keep your fruits of your labor, so to speak. And you shouldn't have to go and, every time I look and see what's going on today, like when they established for that brief period of time, the Ministry of Truth, I'm like, oh my God, we are living in Atlas Shrugs. I mean, this novel was written in the late 40s, early 50s, for God's sakes. And like everything's coming to fruition. But it goes back to what I've said before. Nothing's new. It all stays the same. I mean, you can go back 100 years ago. There was the anarchists and the communists and the people that wanted capitalism and those who didn't. And it's been going on forever. I hit that by accident. Ayn Rand, AYNRAND, cat. It is the book will change your life. Don't get me wrong. It's long. It is long. It's a novel, but I would recommend downloading it, books on tape. Just saying. Corona Dave, have you discussed the PGA Live golf case? We have not discussed the PGA golf case. And I know there's a antitrust lawsuit filed by, I think, 10 golfers who were PGA pros, tour members, and then went off to the Live, LIV golf course and tournament, which is run by the Saudis, and people don't like it because, the Saudi king can be a bad guy, like he kills journalists and chops them up, and Phil Mickelson was like, well, these are bad guys, but pay me $200 million. I can get over bad guy stuff. Right. Because it's always about the money, ladies and gentlemen, right? Think about it. Somebody's going to pay you $200 million to go play in a tournament owned by a country where the prince, the king that's running it, not a bad guy. I mean, most people would probably take it. And most of the golfers, they get guaranteed money. If they go to the PGA Tour and the other minor tours, they don't get guaranteed money for playing. So the Live golf course, which is basically run by Greg Norman has said, hey guys, come on over. Yeah, you compete for more prize money than you get on anything that the PGA has to show. And we'll give you like $35 million to come over and play. So if you don't swing another golf club ever again on the tour, you get $35 million. I mean, let's face it, it's good work if you can get it, right? You've set your family up, probably your kids and grandkids and great grandkids for a while, as long as you don't, spend it all away. Seems like a pretty good deal there. So those 10 golfers, who said, hey, you're banning me from playing golf and your PGA Tour and all the tour events because I went and played on this other tour and you don't like it because it's competition. So they said, hey, that's antitrust. You guys can't do that. It's anti-competitive. I don't know if they're going to win, but I kind of tend to agree that, if you want to play in my club only, it's not like they, got an exemption, an antitrust exemption from Congress like they did for, baseball, football, all those kinds of things where they can say, you can't come play in this league. You get the antitrust exemption. I don't think PGA Tour ever got that because they never needed it before. But why not have competition? It makes everybody better. It does. So for whatever that's worth there, Corona Dave, I don't know if that answers your question, but competition is good. Competition makes everybody better. And I think they should just be able to do it. Bowling with cotton balls. Where did you see the jury came back? I'm not sure which jury we are talking about. Oh, we got Sophie Meyer. Greetings from Germany. Good evening, Sophie. Shut up, I can cook. Got a little emoji there. Let's see. Let's see. I'm reading some of these comments here. Now, the other thing that we're going to talk about is obviously Lori Vallow. Everybody wants to talk about Lori Vallow, Chad Daybell. And I guess we'll give a little bit of a preview. Maybe it'll tease you to come over to the Patreon show this evening. Okay. But for most people, they know that Chad Daybell has an attorney, John Pryor. And one of the issues in the case was that the government was filing a motion to complete some consumptive testing of some DNA. All right. And in particular, they were wanting to test what they believe to be a fingerprint ridge from some duct tape. And basically, the John Pryor had his expert witness in this particular case, a Dr. Greg Hampikin, Hampikian. Hampikin? I think I got that. I don't know. Anyway, he's a professor of biology at Boise State. He's been retained as an expert for Chad Daybell through his attorney. And he has concerns about the state's proposed consumption of evidence for trace touch DNA testing of the ridge detail on the adhesive side of tape recorded by the Rexburg Police Department to be associated with J.J. Vallow's body. The doctor's further affidavit states, my understanding is that the latent print was lifted from a shovel owned by Chad Daybell. Okay. He's concerned that since this latent was lifted, was the handle of Mr. Daybell's shovel, that he would expect to find his DNA on the shovel, even if he was not the source of any latent prints or smudged latents lifted from the handle. His DNA on the handle of a tool that he owns is expected and may be predominant DNA profile, even if he were not the source of any particular latent print. I totally agree. But that is not a good reason not to do the consumptive testing. Don't do the testing because we believe that we may find JJ's DNA on the handle or somebody else's DNA on the handle of a shovel owned by Mr. Daybell. Well, that is cross-examination, ladies and gentlemen. That is not a basis to not do the DNA testing. Okay. The DNA can be tested by the prosecution, and Mr. Pryor basically says that he filed a motion, an affidavit, defense expert, Dr. Hempikin, for further allowing testing of this evidence will likely cause a challenge to the admissibility of evidence. Okay. But what does the good doctor say at the end of his affidavit? He says, if you're going to be there, if you're going to do the testing though, let me be present. Okay. That's always what takes place. This is what he says on this further affidavit. If the latent print is tested for DNA, I would like to observe the DNA extraction and PCR setup for the sample at the laboratory that does the work. Well, that's reasonable. My God, when the whole issue of DNA consumptive testing came up, I don't know, this case is what now, 3 years old? 2 years ago when it came up? I think it's been a long time. Like, okay, consumptive testing takes place all the time. The DA has to give notice. The DA can say, no, we object, don't do that. And the judge says, okay, I'm going to allow it to go forward. Prosecution, you have to let the DNA expert be present for the testing and anything that they would like to observe. And you test it. And this is what goes on further. If the latent print is tested, I would like to be present. Sounds fair. I would also like to be notified of all the results when the quantification is completed before any further testing is done. This will tell us about the concentration and the total DNA amount extracted, male and total, as well as the degradation index for the mixture and the possible information about the number of contributors. You're going to get that anyway in discovery. If sufficient DNA is obtained, I would like to reserve 1/2 of the DNA for further testing by the defense. Well, they said there isn't going to be any, but guess what? If they preserve it, you can go do your own testing, or you could do it once, observe the whole process, and watch them do their calculations, which is what the lab techs do, right? Doctors usually. I mean, this motion, this objection is a master of the obvious. We object to the testing because we believe, of course, you're going to find DNA on Chad Daybell's shovel. And if you're going to allow the testing, Judge, we'd like to be present. Problem solved. I think didn't we solve that problem years ago? We solved the problem about the DNA testing years ago, I think. Oh, yeah. I mean, I just don't understand. And this kind of goes back to our conversation with Lori Hellis. I'm getting concerned. I'm getting concerned that the prosecution is dragging their feet. DNA testing, it takes some time to do it, particularly when you're coordinating with everybody's schedule. They got to do time to do their calculations, do all their consulting that they do, right? We're coming up with trial at the start of January of 2023. I know it seemed like a long time away before it started, but here we are, August 9th, right? So we've got August, September, October, November, December. We're 5 months away, ladies and gentlemen. And this case is 3 years old, and they're still waiting on doing testing. Once again, why is Judge Boyce waiting so long to have a hearing? This is a smaller community. I can't imagine their dockets are so busy that they cannot address these issues as they come up. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But this affidavit filed by John Pryor via his expert is, we object, but if you're going to allow it anyway, we'd like to be present. Well, everybody proposes that. That's the way it's done. So I don't know. Just seems like a lot of wasted time in this particular case. And this is a case for it's the prosecution's case to lose. It's the prosecution's case to lose, ladies and gentlemen. We talked about this with Lori Hellis. I'm telling you, I think she stated that the Madison County DA, she's like a one-woman show over there. Her and some staff, remember, because that's the whole reason they didn't want to move to the other side of the state. Who's going to prosecute? They got like 2 DAs in the entire office and 1 support staff. The biggest case in the state's history, followed by people all over the world. And we've got basically, Mr. Wood at least brought in an attorney full-time to work on the case. It should be ready to go. But there's a lot of stuff they think they want to get in, all that computer stuff, where they were last seen, blah, blah, blah. Don't need it. Tell the cops, have the cops get up and tell a story. What we do? We were looking for the child. What'd you do next? We did this. We did boom, boom, boom. Who cares where they were, where they disappeared? It doesn't matter. They wound up deceased on Chad Daybell's property. Okay. And we have a video. We went out there to the property there in Rexburg, Idaho. And it's not, I was thinking, the ranch, the big old ranch in Rexburg. I'm thinking it looks, we're expecting something out of Yellowstone, right? The television Yellowstone, big, vast ranch. I don't know what's going on the other side of the ranch. The ranch is so vast and expansive. I don't know what's going on there. And then you see that the Daybell house, it's on a corner. Like, it's not that big. All right. I don't know if I can do this real quick. I don't know if we probably don't have that pulled up. We could do that quickly. The drone footage, do we, Frank? No. It's not that big. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. So here, I got my little board here. So here it is, right? Here's a little board. Here's like kind of a main drag and on the road there. And then you turn off, there's kind of a minor road. This is the Daybell property right here. And there's houses over here. There's houses across the street. I don't know if you can see that. You probably can't see that with the lighting, can you now? Okay, so here's the property. Here's his property. There's property here. There's property over here. It's not that big. There's like a little barn or something over here. And then there's a little house over here. If someone was digging up or burying bodies on my property, someone's going to notice. They would. It was not that big. That was the thing that jumped out at us. Is I thought, oh my gosh, they got a Daybell property. It's so big. It's so vast. I mean, it's not that big at all. I mean, a couple acres at most, I think. But you could see from one side to the other. I mean, it's small. So anyway, we'll have to see. Yep. You go, Scott. I love your sense of humor. Well, thank you, Lynn. Sometimes people just don't get my sense of humor. It's a lot of sarcasm. I think that's the best way to describe it, right?
Yeah.
I think sarcasm. Yeah, a lot of sarcasm. It's just who I am. I think it helps. Because people know, like. Stephanie. She's leaving. Ugh, Hunter was not in the White House. So I am so done with this channel. Why does everybody who wants to leave the channel? I mean, nobody's forcing you to subscribe, right? We're leaving. All I'm saying was this has never been done before on a former president. I would be offended if they did this to President Biden. If they went into the White House and searched the White House. We think he did something. We think he did something. We got something in there we're looking at. Okay, bye, Stephanie. But Hunter is a crackhead, okay? An self-admitted crackhead who was dealing with the Chinese, okay? It's been a long time since I've been in the military, but if you could be compromised, they didn't want you to be around things that are sensitive to national security. And when you got all the people saying, hey, he's the big guy, he's going to take a cut from all these millions of dollars. Because just like the quote said, right? When people are getting rich, not from the work that they do, but by favors, right? Let's make sure we get it right. When money is the barometer of society's virtue. When you see that trading is done not by consent, but by compulsion, they're forcing you to do something. When you see that in order to produce, you need to obtain permission from men who produce nothing, i.e., bureaucrats. When you see that money is flowing to those who deal not in goods, someone who creates something, gives in exchange for money, not in goods, but in favors. Oh, politicians, what do? Politicians, we exchange favors. Hey, I'll help you pass this bill if you let me build my pipeline. I know everybody else can't build a pipeline, but I'm going to get to build a pipeline. That's a problem. They're exchanging favors. And you would see that men get rich by graft and by pull than by work. And your laws don't protect you against them, but protect them against you. When you see corruption being rewarded and honesty becoming a self-sacrifice, you may know that your society is doomed. So, yeah, I don't know. Let's see here. And you don't have to agree with me. I'm just trying to explain the law, how you go and get a warrant. Some judge somewhere said, I think there's evidence that a crime has been committed. It just seems like it was a little over the top. Because that's kind of what we do when you look at third world countries. Oh, we don't like this guy. We're going to throw him in jail, right? Listen, and nobody's above the law. I'll be the first to say it. If somebody committed a crime, prosecute them. But you got to prosecute everybody if the crime has been violated. Not just, well, he may be a scumbag, but he's my scumbag, right? That's completely intellectually dishonest. And there's a lot of that in today's world. If somebody's a scumbag, it doesn't matter what political party they're a part of, they should be prosecuted. And it doesn't matter who you are, who you think you are, who your daddy is, what family line you come from. It doesn't matter. Nobody is above the law. The law should be judged equally, right? Old lady justice, blind, right? Right? Lady justice, blind right there. Doesn't matter who comes before them. They're all going to be treated equally. The scales of justice, they start out equally, right? It isn't until prosecution presents their evidence by proof beyond a reasonable doubt, proves their case beyond a reasonable doubt, that the scales tip in favor of the prosecution. If the prosecution can't tip the scales that far, guess what? Defense wins, okay? But everybody that comes before Lady Justice, the court, treated equally. Doesn't care who you are, who you think you are, what you've done, where you've been. That's not a defense. That's called mitigation, okay? So whoever, what her name was, Hunter Biden was not in the White House. No, Hunter Biden is the epitome of a looter. The guy has done nothing in his life. He got dishonorably discharged for drug use from the United States Navy. I think he lost his law license as well. Don't quote me on that. He has no qualifications to do much of anything, and yet companies are paying him millions of dollars. Now, I don't think it's too intellectually dishonest to say he's riding his daddy's coattails, right? I don't think that's getting too... You take away the Biden name, you hear the same set of facts, guy gets a job because of who his daddy is, you'd be like, that guy's a loser, man. So whatever your name was that was leaving the channel, you're so done with it. What's her name? Stephanie Wood. Stephanie. Ugh, Hunter was not in the White House. I'm so done with this channel. Okay. Bye, Stephanie. I'll take care of it for you. There you go. Ta-da! Blocked Stephanie. How's that? It takes a lot to get blocked on my channel because I believe in Well, free speech. Oh, Juan, Scott is a Trumpist confirmed. No. Am I saying that it's illegal? No. Unprecedented? Yes, I could say that. We will have to wait and see. If you remember my words, Juan, Mike, M-I-K-E, here we go. Scott is a Trumpist confirmed. No, absolutely not. So Juan, not true. I said we're going to have to see how this plays out. We will see if, in fact, there's a valid warrant. If charges are filed, it'll be played out in court. Let's just put it that way. Okay? No, not a Trumpist. Let's get for real here. If your personal release by China is OMB. Scott, what do you think will happen to Nick Cruz and the death penalty in Florida? I think they may keep him alive so they can ask him questions. Sarah, obviously Nick Cruz, he is the Parkland shooter, coward, who should only be remembered as a coward for what he did. As a defense attorney, if he was my client, I would do everything I had to do to save his life. They're not saying he didn't do it. They pled guilty, and the prosecutor's putting on their death penalty sentencing case by basically putting on their case in chief that they would have presented at trial had they had to go to trial, because this is all aggravating circumstances. Okay. So we got a kid now. What is he? 20 now, I think, maybe something like that. Young kid, young man. I mean, I don't know what questions you want to ask the kid. I mean, he's either got no soul or he's got some mental health issues, right? It's going to depend on the jury. I don't know. I mean, if a jury wants to save his life and put him in prison for the rest of his life, they can do that. There'll be enough mitigation, I'm sure. He's young. He came from a broken home, whatever, blah, blah, blah. All the stuff that attorneys do and say. If they want to put him to death, there's going to be plenty of aggravators. I think it was 16 dead, I think, in that shooting. So there's plenty enough to do that. If I was a betting man, I think maybe it's a good question for the Magic 8 Ball and the Patreon show, but I would say that they'll probably go death, and he'll be, pretty young. The death penalty, I mean, it's the ultimate punishment, but it's not cruel and unusual. Some states have it, some don't. The federal government has it. If you're charged in federal court, you can be put to death for various crimes as well. But I don't know. I mean, basically what you're saying is when you go into court that this person has no redeeming qualities whatsoever. What's he going to do? It's not like young potential shooters are going to come to him and say, "Hey, Mr. Cruz, what did you do?" What's he going to do? They make a documentary about him. He feels sad. Well, he didn't process anything through early on. I mean, I'm a defense attorney. So, if he's my client, I'll come up with every argument I can to do it. If I was a prosecutor, I can come up with just as many arguments to put him to death. But, we're going to spend the next 30, 50 years trying to do it if the death penalty is imposed at a great cost of millions and millions of dollars. He wasn't my client, but of all the death penalty guys out there who he did it. Remember Timothy McVeigh blew up the Oklahoma City thing, right? I think it was the Murrah building down there in Oklahoma City. And I love the people of Oklahoma City. But what did Tim McVeigh do when death penalty was? Told his attorney, Nate Chambers, pull the appeals. I'm done. Let's do this thing. I mean, you got to have a little bit of respect for that. Nothing better than a client that basically says, bring it on. Bring it on. Let's see here. Let's question Donna. I think this is a super chat, if I correctly. My super chats aren't showing up exactly. Enjoyed your chat with Hellas. I didn't want it to end if and when Judge Boyce unseals the documents and says the public can attend the trial. Do you plan to send someone or personally attend? It's going to be a 6-week trial. Okay. I want to be out there, at least, jury selection. That's always interesting. Probably the most important part of any trial is jury selection. Openings will be good. The prosecution has to worry in this particular case of don't over try the case. Keep it simple. Deceased children, deceased wife, common denominator, Lori and Chad, whether it's charged as a conspiracy, doesn't matter if they did it, somebody did. They don't have to prove who did it under conspiracy, just that the conspiracy actors did it. Keep it simple. Don't over try the case. I mean, they were set for, I think, 10 weeks or something, 12 weeks. Like, I just don't understand. I mean, in every jurisdiction that I've ever practiced in, I just don't see why they think it needs 12 weeks. I mean, I'd say 4 weeks max, but that's just for me. So yes, I will try to attend. I mean, it'd be great if I could attend all 12 weeks, but I still got this day job that kind of requires my attention. So I have to do that. Unless of course, we get to like the million subscribers and everybody loves our, we become the next Mr. Beast of true crime genre, which would be nice. And I could stop the daily practice of law. We'll do our best. Our roaming producer / reporter, Julie, left us to go learn how to fly planes. She wants to become an airline pilot. We wished her the best. But if she was still here, we probably would have sent her out there for the entire thing. We sent her down there for the Barry Morphew preliminary hearing. And it was funny because she was all fired up. Barry Morphew did it. Barry, be bad, evil. Barry Morphew, he did it. And she left there after watching the preliminary hearing. It was like, well, I was a little underwhelmed by the lack of evidence that they had in the case. So allegations can be bold. It only matters what you can prove, right? Everybody's seen that little meme. Doesn't matter if you did it. It only matters if they can prove it. And that's the way it is in the world. And that's why I just don't get the gag order, basically the sealing of everything in the Daybell Vallow cases, is because you can put everything out there, right? How many cases do we get so much information about as the case goes on, through watching the motions, court appearances, reading the motions and things like that, just the general court file. And there's a lot of pretrial publicity, but you don't see a lot of pretrial publicity in a lot of cases like you used to, because like newspapers used to show up and actually follow cases from beginning to end. Now, the news is so pathetic when it comes to these cases. Nobody follows it. And, you get 24 hours in the news cycle and they move on. So people should be able to see it, because it only matters the legal and competent evidence that comes in court. That's it. Doesn't matter what your aunt and uncle are telling you out on the street, what your waiter told you. It only matters what they can prove in court. And like I said, I think I'm getting a little worried. I think the prosecution will pull it off, but I think they are overwhelmed by the task at hand. And I wish them well. I don't want them to fail. I really don't. But I'm just starting to get a little concerned that the prosecution may not be, what's the word I'm looking for? They just don't do this on a regular basis. And I'm not saying because I'm a small town attorney, they just don't get the experience of dealing with all these issues. Scott, team up with the good Lori and put fire under their butts so they know the public is watching. Well, we've let our frustration with the court and the ceiling be known. I've been saying it for a long time. And as I told Lori, she's my hero because, I mean, it's a little easier for her. She's actually in Idaho right now, but she went and intervened. So good on them. Good on them. I mean, normally, I guess you could do it pro se, but she did as a member of the press. But yeah, good on her. She's doing us all a good job. She's doing, yeoman's work out there getting it done. So yeah, I think she's great. I think she's great. Donna Lane, I want to go set up a tent and sleep outside the courtroom. Okay. I don't think you'll need to do that, but probably just have to show up early. That's what I would think. Jay Wilbur, not against the law to make money. And now with all those IRS agents, it should be great. Yeah, I'm going to have to get into IRS audit defense, tax law with 86,000 new agents at the IRS on top of the 50,000 that are conducting audits out there. It's going to be a new niche of work for sure. Lee here. Hitting a little ball with a stick is certainly worth 35 million. Come on, folks. Poor golfers. Hey, it's good work if you can get it, Lee. I would do that for 35 million bucks. PGA is a bit disingenuous too, because they allowed PGA players to play in Saudi Arabia and China for years. Listen, there is enough hypocrisy to go around for all of them. Okay. It's all about the money. The golfers want the money because they're the ones with the skill. PGA put up the tour. The other guy said, hey, we got a better tour. Let them compete. See who wins. See what the market can bear. Or maybe we could have Congress come in and solve all the problems, and they could establish what is a fair wage for golfers, maybe based on seniority or something along those lines. And they can tell us, like, you can drive like little electric golf carts from hole to hole to promote the electric car business instead of letting the market do it, instead of walking. I mean, walking is so, carrying a bag through the park, why walk when you can ride, right? I'm sure they could come up with some rules for it and everyone would be happy. The PGA lobbyists can go and make some donations, graft. Yeah. See why I'm a little skeptical? Yeah. A little cynical too. Let's see here. Yes, the mods are lovely and wonderful. We have the best mods in the business, so to speak. Let's see here. You had 2 super chats from Shut Up, I Can Cook. Okay. Let's see. I can see one here. Pretty. Let's see here. Were they farther up? Let me see if I can go back and find them. Sorry. We're trying to do this. Trying to find them. Shut Up, I Can Cook. Let's see here. Sorry. Got Donna. Saw that one. Let's see here. I wish I could. Oh, hear me. Who is? Let's see here. Juan. You're a. Yeah. No. All politicians are hucksters. Okay. I don't care what party you're from. I would keep them all out after one term. I don't care where they are, what they do. Move them in, move them out. Being a politician was never supposed to be a full-time job. It was supposed to be the job that nobody really wanted, but the town kind of talked you into it. But nobody got too comfortable because you were going to go back to your town and worked. It was never to be a job. That's why even today, state legislators, they get paid like $32,000 a year because it's not a full-time job. It was never meant for a bunch of busybodies to be there year-round coming up with stuff all the time. And you look at legislative bodies that are in session basically year-round, California, because they think they got to do something. There's some states, I think Montana, Texas, I can't find it, where they only have a legislative session once every 2 years. What's wrong with that? So you do your budget 2 years out, and you don't come up with a crazy law for every knee-jerk reaction to anything that takes place, in the world that day. Oh my gosh, somebody ran a red light. If only we had safer cars. Let's pass some legislation for some safer cars. Let's slow everything down, right? It's a free society, ladies and gentlemen. Let us be free. That's what it comes down to. Yes, Don Marie, shut up. I can cook. Could you kindly ask again? I'm sorry. I went back through and okay, here it is. Shut up. I can cook. I don't think he will pay any attention. I would. Watch me. Okay, I'm watching this. I'm watching. I'm sorry. Sometimes they go by fast and then it's hard to find. Did the judge dismiss weapons violations by altering a shotgun that gave Barry Morphew back his firearms? My understanding is Barry Morphew does not have his firearms back. As you may recall, Barry Morphew was charged with first-degree murder. The DA's office screwed that case up so bad, and they dismissed those charges. He pled guilty to one count of, I think it was forgery, received a deferred judgment. So he can't possess firearms during the, I think it's 1 year period for his deferred judgment. Sounds like he got off just fine. Okay, shut up. I can cook. I am sorry. Hi, third super chat. Please analysis of Professor Dan Markle's murder. Okay, Professor Dan Markle's murder. Generally the facts, I know it. This is the guy who was, the lady worked, I think, at the dental office. Let me see here. Let me make sure I get it right. But it mistried the first time, and there was like murder for hire. And I think she was found guilty of everything the second time around, which seems like it was the appropriate result. Let me just double check it here. Okay. Didn't have, you know how many cases are going on in the world every day, ladies and gentlemen? So many of them. I try to keep up on all of them. Let's see here. Yep, this is what I thought. Yes. Magbuna, I think is how they pronounce the lane. Third person convicted. Life without parole. This was like the girlfriend. Department of Corrections show that Catherine Magbwana has now been booked in the state prison to begin a life sentence for FSU professor Dan Markle. Magbwana was picked up at the Leon County Jail, found guilty of murder, conspiracy, and solicitation at trial, and was sentenced to life plus 30 years. As I remember, this case resulted in a mistrial like a couple of years ago. Then it was delayed because of COVID, and it was just kind of drug out forever. Another guy, Sigfredo Garcia, serving a life sentence for murder. His friend Luis Rivera serving a 19-year prison sentence in exchange for his testimony. Rivera claims that they were paid $100,000 for the job and split the money 3 ways. Charlie Adelson was arrested just weeks before Magbuna's trial. He is currently in the Leon County Jail. His next court date is September 9th, and he's asking for bond to pending trial. Trial's going to be in 2023. It was a murder for hire, and I think, if I remember correctly, wasn't she like the girlfriend or something on that? I mean, I know some people that, oh my gosh, she's so innocent, but yeah, I don't think so. You know, when you have a co-defendant testifying, now don't get me wrong, I have won cases where the co-defendant testifies, but for the most part, it is pretty tough. It is pretty tough when the co-defendant comes in and says, I did bad things, but yes, I am going to testify truthfully in exchange to get a reduced sentence, but I admit I did all the bad things too. And whenever, rule number one that they teach you when it comes to criminal defense, multiple co-defendants case, it is a race to the courthouse. He who gets there first gets the best deal. Bottom line. And that's what happened. And you're correct. That is a horrible, sad case. Okay, somebody looked it up too. There are more people that are arrested. Yeah, I think, like I said, just mentioned the last guy was. The honor killing defendant got convicted today. That's another case. No one cares how Scott votes. That's why we are here. Not everything is about politics, people. I agree. I have represented people over the years of all kinds of political persuasion. And frankly, I think that's a sign of a great attorney. Somebody can say, I don't care what you did. I don't care what you're trying to do or say. But the reality of it is that everybody's entitled to a defense. And a good attorney can represent anybody. And a great attorney is going to be able to say, I completely disagree with you, but I'm still going to defend your constitutional rights, right? Think about the Skokie cases, right? When you had those evil Nazis that wanted to march through town where it was a predominantly Jewish community. And the ACLU said, we despise these guys. They're scumbags, but the greater good is to protect, their First Amendment rights, because if we let them do it even for the scumbags that nobody likes, it's not right, right? And the ACLU, the attorney that represented the Nazi guys was Jewish. May not like it, but he was doing his job as an attorney, and it didn't matter. So yeah, it's not all about politics, ladies and gentlemen. Frankly, it should be about intellectual honesty. And if you want to engage in intellectual dishonesty, then you should probably go to, a political channel where you can have an echo chamber and repeat everything that you want to hear. And I'm sure you'll be happy. And you'll be like, I am with like-minded people, and we're the only ones that are correct. It's like competition. You have to get all competition's good. Hearing from other sides is good. It makes you realize, right? I remember learning this in college, that it's good to have opposing views put upon you, because it will either reinforce and make you challenge what you have and say, you know what, I'm in fact correct. Or it'll challenge your belief system and say, well, maybe they do have a bit of a point there. And I guess that we could agree on that particular point. Okay. It's called, as you get older, you realize how little you know. Okay. The more you know, the more you learn, the more you realize how little you know in the world. And it always amazes me how everybody knows all the answers to everything in the world. Most of the days I just sit here and think, wow, I hope I did that analysis correct. I hope I got it right. But you got to do the research. You got to check it out. And, if you start going down a particular, part of a job as an attorney is you're constantly evaluating your case, not in respect to your side. You can be in the psychosis hotel and checking yourself into the penthouse suite and basically say, oh, we got a great case. We can win this. Other than the confession, the eyewitnesses, the DNA, the prosecution's got nothing, right? But any good attorney is going to look and say, ooh, we got some problems. Yeah, that DNA, I guess we could spin that a little bit. Of course DNA's there. Of course they were close, the confession. Oh, it was a false. You have to look at everything. If you just pigeon yourself into one particular idea, that's it. You are going to fail. You will become an ignorant person. You have to always be challenging your views. And who knows? Who knows exactly what's right? Maybe you're right all along, but at least if someone's challenging that, you're saying, yeah, I'm still right, but I've actually looked at it and evaluated what I was saying. Okay. Paris 710, Crime Talk. Do you think that constitutional carry will be the law of the land someday? Maybe. Okay. Now, in light of the Heller decision and then the New York shooting club, I think it was, which basically said, Heller said, you have a right to defend yourself in your home. And oh, that's right. The Second Amendment is a fundamental constitutional right, a right of self-defense. And then there were some cases in Chicago. And then there were the New York case says you have a right to protect yourself via a firearm in public as well. But when you read the opinion, they basically say, hey, we're not saying, you should just be able to constitutional carry on everything. They can put some reasonable restrictions on you. The whole issue in the New York shooting club case was people would go to the bureaucrats in New York and say, hey, I would like to get a firearm for home protection. I have a legitimate need for it. I have a wife, a family. I live in the city, but it doesn't really matter. The reality of it is I want to be able to protect myself because the United States Supreme Court says under the Constitution and the Second Amendment, I have a right to protect myself in my home. And basically New York was saying, well, sure, we're going to offer permits, but we're just not going to give it to anybody. And so the bureaucrats who weren't elected by anybody basically came up with reasons to exclude you. They basically said, the Supreme Court in the New York shooting club case says that you can put those restrictions on people, but once they meet the restrictions, like, oh, you need to go take a class, become familiar with that particular firearm. Once they check those boxes, you can't withhold them getting the permit, the concealed carry permit. And because New York was like, we don't care what the Supreme Court says, we're still not going to do it. Even now, I think the Supreme Court, people in New York are like, we're still not going to give any licenses. We don't believe that people have constitutional rights. And I will get this. I swear to God, I do not get this. I do not get this. Why would anyone vote for anyone who's going to restrict your constitutional, your rights given to you, whether you believe from God, from nature, your fundamental right as a human being? What politician, who would vote for a politician who says, you know what? Yeah, we got those constitutional amendments. Founding fathers were pretty smart. Yeah, if you look at those first 10 amendments, that's basically every dictator ever did to put down a rebellion. Yeah, let's shut down the newspapers, freedom of assembly, freedom of religion, because those churches are bad. Just let's get rid of them. And we'll take away the firearms because we only want that. We're the only ones that are going to have guns. We can search people's place. We'll look for all our political enemies by executing search warrant, or not even executing a search warrant. We're just going to kick the door in because that's what tyrants do, right? We're going to take your property, your land, not give you anything, and we'll put you in jail when we want to. Maybe we'll give you a trial. Maybe we'll torture you a little cruel and unusual punishment, right? You look at those first 8 amendments, right? It's everything that every tyrant throughout the world had ever done to hold people down. And then we have this great experiment here where people are going to say, no, those rights didn't come from the king. If he granted us such privileges today and he can take them away tomorrow. They said, no, these are the rights. Remember, they wouldn't even pass the Constitution. The 13 states wouldn't approve the Constitution unless the Bill of Rights were included on there. Because they're like, hey, we've been through that with the king. Not doing that again, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, we love all of the amendments. And to say, well, I like the one, but don't like the second, but the fourth is okay. But if I didn't do anything wrong, what do I have to worry about searching? It doesn't matter if you did anything wrong. I mean, I never understood that argument. Well, I have nothing to hide. Oh, really? Why don't you just let me come over and pilfer through your drawers, right? I mean, don't worry about it. You've done nothing, got nothing to hide. I'm just going to do it. Don't worry about your privacy. I mean, I just do not get that. And I don't think we teach the Constitution in the schools enough. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. But anyone who wants to vote for somebody say, oh, we're going to take away your constitutional rights. I mean, it's spelled out. It's written right there. I do not get it. I do not get it. All right. Let's see here. Boy, the chats just keep on coming. Although we must have upset a lot of people, I guess. Let's see. But that's okay. That's okay. When you want to come back and take a look at, that's the beauty of freedom. No one's forcing you to stay here. Nobody's saying you can only listen to Scott Reich. And if you don't agree with Scott Reich, it doesn't matter because the government says you got to listen to Scott Reich. He's the one that they have chosen. He is the chosen one. Yep. Don't believe that at all. It's all about the competition of ideas. And if you can't compete in the arena of ideas without the government subsidies, so to speak, it's let's see here. Lee here. I think the older you get, the more you know that whatever you think doesn't matter. All the jumping up and down about crap does nothing. Only thing to do is be good to each other. Well, that's the most cynical thing I've heard all night, Lee here. I get it. It's frustrating. It is frustrating. Oh, okay. Okie dokie here. I see this. Just a little thank you, Scott. Thank you for your team. Thank you, okie dokie. I mean, we appreciate super chats, and I really do try to see them. It's hard sometimes when they're scrolling by, and I'm trying to do that myself. But all right. Well, can you believe it's that time already? They don't trust the police or the politicians, but they will take them away their weapons. It is crazy. Pair 710. They don't trust the police, the politicians. I trust nobody. Okay. Well, except our CrimeTalk community family here. I trust you guys. I appreciate it. But yeah, I mean, I have become more skeptical as I get older of the government. And a lot of it has to do because I'm in a criminal defense attorney where I've seen them lie, cheat, and steal to try to get their way. And it wasn't unless and until little old me stood up for my client. That they got called out on it. And don't get me wrong, but that's the way it is. Okay. The government is humans. They're only as good as the people that are there. And as they used to tell us in the military, just remember that gear you're wearing. That's right. It was built by the lowest bidder. Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. And even when I was a kid, even when I was a young attorney, it didn't seem like people went to work for the government forever. Attorneys, you maybe started on private practice. You did a little stint in some agency. I knew a lady that she wanted to do SEC litigation. She couldn't get a job. She went to work for the government, learned her trade, went out and made a ton of money in the private practice. That's the way it was. Government jobs were never supposed to be the permanent. You're going to be there forever. So yeah. Let's see here. Let's see here. Peace out, Lisa. I am the same. I don't trust anyone anymore either. I finally learned that in my older years. Yeah, maybe I'm just becoming cynical, I guess. Thanks, Scott. Appreciate that, Chef Betsy. Let's see here. Go through this here. All right. Well, look at that. I told you we stay a little longer tonight, and we did. But guess what? We have to. Oh, let me make sure I got these here. I think I got this one here. One more. Can the police lie when they are doing interrogations? Yes. Cars, Kaars. Yes, they can. Thanks, Scott. And then we got. There we go. Those popped up at the top. Interesting. Yes, the police can lie, cars. At least here in the United States. Although there's some legislation here in Colorado prevents them from doing that to juveniles, which is good. But the Supreme Court has condoned lying to the bad guy because they're dealing with bad guys. And it's okay. Sometimes you got to, get a little dirty when you're dealing with people in the sewers, so to speak. They can say, oh, your co-defendant next door has told me all about you. You might as well come clean. Your buddy's rolling on you. Better roll on him first. In reality, the other guy's like, he said, lawyer. And he's already being booked in the jail. So yes, they can lie. Yes, trust but verify. I totally agree. All right. Shut up. I can cook. Sorry if I missed your previous questions. I'm sorry. I think I got them all, though. What is this? Oh, Sue from St. Petersburg. Thanks for joining us this evening. We should give a big shout out to everybody, but all right. Anyway, final pitch, because, guys got to make a living. New merch here, ladies and gentlemen. Take a look at that bad boy. Crime Talk. And look, it's got Crime Talk 1 right there. Hit the link below. Have it for you in a couple of days. We'll put old lady Justice back on the shelf where she belongs, blindfolded, not caring who anybody is, their status in life, who their daddy is, how much money their daddy has. Doesn't matter. Justice should be blind. Treat everybody the same. Everybody that goes before the court should be treated the same. It doesn't matter. And only when the scales tip should we convict somebody. Because as they say, it's better to let 10 guilty men free than to convict an innocent man. So, all right. Have a wonderful night. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll see you next time on Crime Talk.